What's up? Thanks for tuning in. As you can see, we are in a slightly different format today, and that is because we are doing a bloom spotlight video. Typically, my orchid videos are sort of like a general what's in bloom roundup where I show you a bunch of stuff. However, once in a while, I have an orchid that's so stunning that I think it deserves its own video. And today we are talking about Angraecum Crestwood Tomorrow Star. As you can see, it's this big, stunning, vivacious type orchid. It's a Angraecoid, obviously, and it has these beautiful, big, star-shaped flowers, and I am just in love with it, and I'm excited to show it off to you guys today. I got mine from Norman's Orchids about 2 years ago. The first year I had it, it did not flower. I think it was adjusting to the new conditions, but the following year it finally did bloom for me, and I'm super stoked. This thing is really incredible. Angraecum Crestwood is a hybrid. It's a cross between Angraecum veitchii and Angraecum sesquipedale. When I was first looking into this plant, I thought it was a primary hybrid because Angraecum veitchii kind of sounds like a species name. However, veitchii is a hybrid. Fun fact, when people first started hybridizing orchids, they were often named weird like Latin words like species names. So sometimes a hybrid name would actually sound like a species name. So when I read Angraecum veitchii, I assumed that was also a species, so I thought this was a primary hybrid. But it's not. This is actually a back cross. If you aren't familiar with that term, basically what that means is you take two orchids, cross them together to get a hybrid. And then you take that hybrid and you cross it back onto one of its parents. So you basically end up sort of doubling the amount of genetic material from one parent. So instead of it being a 50-50 cross, it ends up being more like 75-25. I'm not sure if that's exactly how it shakes out. I'm not an expert on plant genetics and hybridizing, but that's a basic idea of a back cross. It is taking a hybrid, crossing it back to one of its parents to bring out some desirable trait that one of the species had. So Angraecum Crestwood is a back cross. It has the sesquipedale in it, about 75%, and Angraecum eburnum is like 25%. So it's heavy on that Angraecum sesquipedale parentage. Angraecum sesquipedale is a pretty well-known, famous orchid. You've probably heard of it. It's often nicknamed the Darwin's orchid because when Darwin was first observing the Angraecum sesquipedale, he noted that it had this really long spur or nectary. All Angraecoids have them, but the sesquipedale has a really long, pronounced one. So from that, he was able to deduce that there was some creature out there, a pollinator, that was able to reach down that nectary, either a bird with a long beak or a insect with a really long proboscis. So Angraecum sesquipedale just became a really quintessential example of how evolutionary biology can work and how plants and animals can develop these really specialized traits and sort of co-evolve together. It's just really interesting. So that's just some background about Angraecum sesquipedale. The other species that's sort of like a grandparent of this is the Angraecum eburnum, which is also a big, beautiful, vivacious Angraecoid with really high flower count. I think that greatly contributes to why the Angraecum Crestwood is such a good bloomer. So we get that wonderful sesquipedale shape with some of the beneficial traits of the eburnum. It's a really magnificent hybrid, and the Tomorrow Star is a really highly awarded clone. It's gotten like every possible certificate you could. It's really well awarded. Can have just like immense amounts of flowers on them. I've seen photos of these just magnificent plants covered in flowers. These have the potential to become really big, beautiful specimen plants. It is nighttime fragrant like most Angraecoids, which is always fun. I love having nighttime fragrant plants. It just is something to look forward to once I shut off my LEDs. The flowers are just beautiful. They're quite green. The sesquipedale is a bit more white and the eburnum's a bit more green. So the crestwood can have sort of like varying amounts of green or white. I've seen a lot of pictures where they look quite white. Mine seems really heavy on the green. Could have something to do with the temperatures or the light. The flowers are huge. They're like 5 inches across, really waxy. They can be quite long lasting. Mine seem to be browning at the tips kind of early. I think that's probably because I keep the lights a little too bright on it, but they're holding up pretty well nonetheless. When I first bought mine, it came potted in pure moss, which was kind of surprising to me for a Vanda and Angraecoid to be potted in pure moss. It's not that strange. It seems to have grown just fine in that. I imagine that maybe it's good to start them in moss when they are young, but as they get bigger, probably better to pot them into something a bit more coarse. I didn't repot mine because I didn't want to disturb it. I was hoping to get to see blooms on it before I messed with it. So now that I had a chance to enjoy blooming on it, I will probably repot it into maybe a coarse bark of some kind. Angraecoids like a lot of water, but they do like to dry out. The sweet spot for me has been to let it dry out, but don't let it remain dry for very long. I find that once it's dry, it's ready for more water. There's no need to like leave it dry, but that will vary depending on your humidity and all that stuff. So don't take that as gospel, but I find that they like a wet dry cycle, but a little more heavy on the wet, I suppose, especially in the summer when they're growing more actively. I would say it's probably a safe bet to cut back on the water a bit during the winter. Some people say that Angraecoids like winter rests. I wouldn't say they need a winter rest, but I would say it's good to cut back on fertilizer and water a little bit less during the winter. But I do that across the board for all my plants because all growth always slows down a bit during the winter, so it sort of just makes sense. They are winter bloomers. It'll always bloom around this time of year. You would think that a nice big vivacious plant like this would like really strong light, but when it comes to Angraecoids, they tend to like a bit less light than you might expect. It's sort of comparable to like Neophoenicias. They're a Vanda, but they can take a bit less light than most Vandas. I would say Angraecoids are similar to that. So keep it bright, but not crazy bright. It'll appreciate good water quality, but I wouldn't say it's like super fussy about that. There are other Angraecoids that are much more finicky. Some small like Orangus and stuff like that really like pure water. I would say do your best to keep the water kind of low TDS and stuff, but it's not super fussy as far as that's concerned. I use tap water for mine. And that's about it. Temperatures are pretty normal. I grow it indoors, maybe 80 as a high in the summer, and then, you know, maybe 60, 55 lowest in the winter. My grow area is sort of like away from all the radiators and stuff in my apartment, so it does get a bit of a temperature dip in the winter, which I'm sure helps to contribute to the blooming. I think it'll require some sort of temperature dip to get it to spike, but nothing crazy, probably just a few degrees. And that's about it. I don't think I have too much more to say about it, except that it's stunning. If you like Angraecoids and you have the space, this one is just amazing. Go look up some photos of like some awarded ones. They have so many flowers, it's stunning. I can't wait till mine gets bigger. I hope to grow it out into a really big, impressive specimen. If you've grown Angraecum Crestwood or the sesquipedale or Eburnum, leave me a comment. Let me know what your experience has been like. I'd love to share tips and information down in the comment section. And I recently hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I don't think I acknowledged it in a video yet, so I just wanted to say thank you guys. That's so exciting. I love making these videos and I'm so happy that you guys are enjoying them. So as long as you keep watching and liking and subscribing and commenting and all that stuff, I will make sure to keep the videos coming. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.